Hi everyone, welcome back to Steve's View. Whether you support Donald Trump or oppose him, his recent speech at Mount Rushmore raised a question that goes far beyond one politician. It is a question about America itself. After 250 years of independence, what exactly holds the United States together? Is America simply a country defined by borders, laws, and institutions? Or is America something deeper, an idea, a culture, and a shared belief about freedom, responsibility, and the purpose of government? In his Independence Day speech, Donald Trump presented a very clear answer. He argued that America's greatness does not come only from its Constitution or its economic power. It comes from a unique national character, a culture built around individual freedom, personal responsibility, faith, family, hard work, and patriotism. According to Trump, the greatest danger facing America today is not an enemy army overseas. It is the possibility that Americans themselves are forgetting the principles that created their country. And this is where his speech becomes part of a much larger debate happening across America. A debate about history, a debate about education, and most importantly, a debate about American identity. For much of its history, the United States has been different from traditional nations. Many countries are built around a shared ethnicity, language, or ancient cultural heritage. America was different. The United States was founded around an idea. The Declaration of Independence did not say that America belonged to one ethnic group. It made a much broader claim, that all people are created equal and that governments exist to protect certain natural rights. This idea became the foundation of the American experiment. The United States was not created as a nation where everyone shared the same background. It was created as a nation where people from different backgrounds could unite around common principles. This is why many historians describe America as a creedal nation, a country held together not only by ancestry but by belief in a set of political ideals. But there is a difficult question. Can a nation built around ideas survive if its citizens no longer believe in those ideas? This is the concern behind much of Trump's speech. Trump argued that America's success was never guaranteed. The Constitution alone did not create American freedom. A document cannot defend itself. A system of government cannot survive without citizens who understand and support it. This idea is not new. Many political thinkers throughout history have argued that free societies depend on more than laws. They depend on culture. They depend on habits. They depend on citizens who accept certain responsibilities. The French writer Alexis de Tocqueville, after visiting America in the 1830s, observed that American democracy was supported not only by institutions but also by social values, local communities, and civic participation. In other words, democracy requires a democratic culture. Trump's argument follows this tradition. His message was essentially, America is not successful simply because it has a constitution. America is successful because generations of Americans believed the Constitution was worth protecting. However, the most controversial part of Trump's speech was his discussion of communism and Marxism. Trump argued that America is facing an ideological challenge from within. He claimed that some movements in modern America are trying to replace the country's traditional values with ideas that are incompatible with American freedom. For Trump's supporters, this argument makes sense. They believe that America is experiencing a cultural transformation. They point to debates over education, immigration, social issues, and the role of government. They argue that some modern movements reject traditional American values and create division instead of unity. From this perspective, Trump's warning is not simply about communism as a historical system. It is about a broader ideological conflict over what America should become. But Trump's critics see the issue very differently. They argue that his definition of communism is too broad. In political science, communism has a very specific meaning: the abolition of private ownership of the means of production and the creation of a classless society. Very few Americans today openly support that system. Critics argue that Trump often uses the word communism as a political label for a much wider range of progressive ideas. They believe that issues such as healthcare reform, climate policy, social programs, or discussions about historical injustice should not automatically be described as communist. According to this perspective, America is not facing a communist takeover. It is simply experiencing a normal democratic debate over competing visions of society. And this disagreement reveals something important. The real conflict in America today is not only about policy, it is about identity. One of the biggest debates in America right now is how the country should understand its own history. Should Americans focus primarily on the ideals of the founding, or should they focus more on the failures and contradictions of the past? For many conservatives, the answer is clear. They argue that America must teach younger generations about the principles that created the country: the Declaration of Independence, the Constitution, the sacrifices of the revolutionary generation, the importance of liberty and limited government. They worry that if Americans are taught only about the nation's mistakes, they will lose pride in their country and lose confidence in its institutions. But many liberals and historians respond differently. They argue that understanding America's darker chapters, including slavery, discrimination, and inequality, does not weaken the country. Instead, they believe honest examination of history is necessary to improve the nation and fulfill its founding promises. In their view, acknowledging America's failures is not rejecting America. It is part of the effort to make America better. So the deeper question is not whether America has problems. Every nation has problems. The deeper question is, what story should Americans tell about themselves? Every country needs some kind of national story, a shared understanding of where it came from and where it wants to go. Without that story, citizens may begin to see their country only through political conflict. They may stop viewing each other as fellow citizens and start viewing each other as enemies. And this is perhaps the most important issue raised by Trump's speech. Not whether every part of his argument is correct, but whether America still has enough shared values to hold itself together. At 250 years old, the United States is entering a new era. The country faces serious challenges: political polarization, economic inequality, global competition, declining trust in institutions. A generation of Americans who often disagree about basic questions of national identity. But America's history also shows another pattern. The United States has repeatedly faced moments of crisis: the Civil War, the Great Depression, World Wars, the Cold War. Each time, Americans debated what their country represented. And each time, they had to decide whether their differences were stronger than their common identity. Donald Trump's Mount Rushmore speech was ultimately not just about celebrating America's birthday. It was an argument about what America is. Trump's answer is that America is a civilization built on freedom, tradition, faith, responsibility, and national pride. His supporters see this as a necessary defense of America's founding principles. His critics see it as a selective interpretation of history and an attempt to divide the country. But regardless of political opinion, one thing is clear: America's debate over its future is also a debate over its past. The country is not only asking, what policies should we choose? It is asking, what kind of nation do we want to be? After 250 years, that may be the most important question facing the United States. Because nations are not preserved only by their armies, their economies, or their laws. They are preserved by what their people believe is worth protecting. And the next chapter of the American story may depend on whether Americans can find a way to remember their shared ideals while honestly confronting their history. Thanks for watching.